They call me selfish, greedy, heartless. Those were the exact words my half-sister yelled at me across my dad's lawyer's office just 3 weeks ago. And I'll be honest with you, I can still hear the way her voice cracked when she said it. I didn't think this would happen. I mean, I knew there would be some tension, maybe some awkward silences, but not this. Not full-blown accusations that I stole their future. But maybe I should back up. I'm 27. My dad passed away unexpectedly a little over 2 months ago, and he left me, well, everything. Not just the house. Not just the savings. Literally everything he had worked his whole life for. And here's the part where most people instantly ask, well, what about your half-siblings? Right. Them. So, my dad was married before he met my mom. He and his first wife had 2 kids, my half-siblings, Jake, 30, and Emily, 33. By the time I was born, his marriage to their mom had been long over. He and my mom were together for nearly 2 decades before she died when I was a teenager. Here's the truth. Jake and Emily were never really in my life. They lived with their mom most of the time, and from what I understand, things between her and my dad ended badly. Really badly. She made sure to poison them against him, and by extension, against me. So while technically they're my siblings, emotionally, we're strangers. I didn't grow up having them around. I didn't share holidays, didn't get late-night talks, didn't even get random texts. If I passed them on the street, I probably wouldn't have even recognized them until my late teens. But the day we all sat in the lawyer's office together, you would have thought we were supposed to be the closest family on earth. I can still picture it. The way Emily sat stiff in her chair, her nails digging into the arms of the seat like she was trying not to explode. The way Jake kept glaring at me every time the lawyer said my name. And then the lawyer read the will. My father left everything to me. No conditions. No mention of splitting it. Not even a token gift for them. Nothing. That's when Emily stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Her face went red, and she pointed at me like I'd planned this whole thing. She doesn't deserve it, she snapped. This is supposed to be shared. We're his kids too. I couldn't even respond at first. My heart was pounding, my throat tight, and the room suddenly felt like it had no air. I wanted to say something, anything, but all I managed was this pathetic little, I didn't know. Because I didn't. I didn't know my dad would cut them out completely. He'd never mentioned it. Not once. But in that moment, they didn't care. To them, I wasn't just their half-sister. I was the thief who had just stolen everything from them. And here's the thing. I don't feel like I stole anything. My dad made his choice. But lately, with the way they've been calling, texting, and showing up at my door, because I can't shake this one thought. If I keep everything, does that make me the villain of this story? After the reading of the will, everything spiraled fast. The lawyer, Mr. Harris, tried to calm things down, but his voice barely carried over the shouting. Emily was pacing the office, her heels clacking against the hardwood floor like gunshots. Jake sat forward with his hands clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Meanwhile, I just sat there, frozen, like if I didn't move, maybe the whole storm would pass me by. But it didn't. This isn't fair, Emily snapped, throwing her hands up. He abandoned us when we were kids, and now he leaves us nothing? Not even a dime. You can't expect us to just accept this. Her eyes darted to me then, sharp and accusing. And you? You think you deserve all of it? After what he did to us? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth is, I didn't know what to say. What did I deserve? My relationship with Dad wasn't perfect either. We had good years, sure, especially when Mom was alive, but after she passed away when I was 16, things got rocky. He was grieving, I was grieving, and honestly, we clashed. A lot. But I was still there. I lived with him, I took care of him when his health started to dip, and I was the one who found him when he was gone. So yeah, part of me felt like maybe he left everything to me because I was the one actually in his life. But another part of me felt guilty for even thinking that. Mr. Harris cleared his throat. I understand this is difficult news, but your father's wishes are very clear. Unless there is legal grounds to contest, the estate goes entirely to his daughter, Anna. That was me, Anna. And hearing my name spoken like that, so final, made my stomach flip. Jake finally spoke, his voice low but steady. There will be a contest. My heart dropped. What? Jake? He cut me off with a glare. Don't act innocent. You knew. You had to know. Dad didn't just cut us out like this without being pushed. I blinked at him. I didn't even know about the will until today. Emily scoffed. Oh, please. He raised you to believe you were the only one that mattered. You were his replacement family, his shiny new daughter. And now look, you get rewarded for it while we get punished. Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. Because deep down, wasn't that the real wound here? That they felt replaced? That they felt like I was a symbol of everything they lost when Dad left their mom? Still, none of that was my fault. I was just born. I didn't choose any of this. The argument kept circling like that until Mr. Harris finally ushered us all out. I remember standing in the hallway afterward, clutching my coat like it was armor, and hearing Emily's voice echo behind me. This isn't over, Anna. Not even close. And she was right. The text started that same night. First from Emily, long paragraphs about how I'd ruined their lives and how she wouldn't forgive this betrayal. Then from Jake, shorter, sharper messages. We're coming for what's ours. Don't get comfortable. At first I ignored them. I told myself they were just grieving, angry, lashing out. But then Jake showed up at my door. It was 2 days later. I'd just gotten home from work, exhausted, drained, still processing everything, when I heard the pounding on my front door. I froze in the hallway, keys still in my hand. Something in my gut told me it wasn't just a neighbor. When I peeked through the peephole, my stomach sank. Jake, standing there, shoulders squared, jaw tight. Open the door, Anna, he called out, his voice muffled but firm. We need to talk. Every instinct in me screamed not to. But another part of me thought, maybe if I just let him say his piece, this could be resolved. Maybe we could actually talk. So, against my better judgment, I opened the door. Jake stepped in before I could even invite him. He looked around the house with this cold expression, like he was already measuring what parts of it would be his. This place should have been ours too, he muttered. Then his eyes locked on me. You think you can just take everything and leave us with nothing? Not gonna happen. My throat went dry. Jake, I didn't. This wasn't my decision. Dad made his choice. Don't feed me that, he snapped. You were with him. You influenced him. You probably convinced him to cut us out. I didn't. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. I didn't even know until the lawyer read it. I swear. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, maybe. But then it hardened again. You expect me to believe that? He stepped closer, and I instinctively stepped back. You've always had everything handed to you. Dad left us, started over with your mom, and you got the perfect little family while we got scraps. And now you get the inheritance too? No, not this time. I didn't know what to say. My chest felt tight, tears threatening at the corners of my eyes. But I forced myself to stand straighter, even as my knees shook. Jake, I whispered, I'm sorry you feel cheated. I am, but I can't change what Dad did. I can't undo his will. He stared at me for a long moment, breathing heavy. Then, without another word, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard the picture frame in the hallway rattled. I sank to the floor the second he was gone, my whole body trembling. And that's when I realized this wasn't just grief anymore. This was war. For the next week, I lived in a constant state of tension. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced myself for another angry message. Every knock at the door made my heart lurch. Jake hadn't come back in person, thank God, but his words still echoed in my head. This place should have been ours too. And the thing that unsettled me most was that he hadn't sounded like he was bluffing. He sounded like someone who believed it down to his bones. Then came Emily. It was a Thursday evening when I got the call. I was sitting on the couch, trying to lose myself in some mindless Netflix series, when her name lit up my screen. My stomach flipped. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in me, maybe guilt, maybe curiosity, made me swipe to answer. Hello. My voice was small. Anna. Her tone was clipped, controlled, but there was this sharp edge under it, like a knife hidden beneath fabric. We need to talk. I swallowed. Emily, I don't think that's not negotiable. She cut me off. Tomorrow. Coffee. 11 a.m. at Bean and Brew on 5th. Don't be late. And then she hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She hadn't asked. She'd ordered. Sleep was impossible that night. My brain kept spinning with questions. What did she want? Was she going to scream at me like she had in the lawyer's office? Was this some kind of trap? By morning, my nerves were shredded, but I still went. Maybe I shouldn't have, but some part of me thought, maybe she just wants closure. Maybe she just wants to say her piece. Bean and Brew was crowded when I arrived. the smell of coffee beans and baked pastries filling the air. I spotted her instantly. Emily sat at a corner table, back straight, fingers tapping against her mug. She looked polished, like always. Perfect hair, expensive jacket, but her eyes were cold the second they met mine. "Sit," she said, not even bothering with a greeting. I slid into the chair across from her, clutching my latte like it was a shield. She leaned forward. "Jake was too nice to you." My stomach dropped. "Nice?" I echoed, incredulous. "He cornered me in my house." She waved that off. "You don't get it. This isn't about you personally. It's about what's right. What's ours?" Her voice sharpened. "Do you know what Dad told us, growing up? That he'd make it up to us one day. That we'd all be taken care of. That he wouldn't leave us with nothing." Her eyes locked on mine, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine hurt there. But it vanished as quickly as it came. "And then we find out he left everything to you?" "No, absolutely not. That's not what he promised us." I tried to steady my voice. "Emily, I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know he'd told you those things." "Of course you didn't." She sneered. "You were too busy being the golden child." That word hit me hard. Golden child. I'd never thought of myself that way. Sure, Dad had been present in my life in ways he hadn't been for them, but that didn't mean my childhood was perfect. After Mom died, things were messy. He drank more. He snapped at me over little things. I felt like I was walking on eggshells half the time. But to them, all they saw was that I had him, and they didn't. Emily leaned back, crossing her arms. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to split the inheritance with us. Equal shares. 3 ways. That's the only fair solution." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Split it?" "Emily, I can't just." "You can." Her eyes narrowed. "You just don't want to. Don't play dumb. You could transfer money tomorrow if you wanted. You could sign over part of the house. The only reason you haven't is because you're selfish." I shook my head, my hands trembling. "It's not about being selfish. Dad made his decision. If I go against it, it's like I'm saying his wishes didn't matter." Her laugh was bitter. "His wishes didn't matter when he left us. So why should they matter now?" That silenced me. For a moment, I just stared at her, my heart thudding in my chest. Because what could I even say to that? She leaned in again, lowering her voice. "If you don't do this willingly, Anna, we'll make sure you regret it. We'll contest the will. We'll drag your name through the mud. And trust me, you won't come out looking like the good daughter then." My breath caught. "Are you threatening me?" "Call it what you want." She stood, grabbing her purse. "You have 1 week to decide. Split it with us, or deal with the consequences." And just like that, she walked out, heels clicking against the tile, leaving me trembling in the middle of the cafe. I barely remember driving home. My brain was fogged, looping her words again and again. 1 week to decide. That night, I pulled out one of the old boxes of Dad's things. I don't know what I was looking for, comfort, maybe, or answers. Something to prove to myself that he really had wanted me to have everything. I sifted through photo albums, birthday cards, old receipts. Then, at the bottom of the box, I found a letter. My name was written on the envelope in his handwriting. My heart stuttered as I slid it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and what it said made my blood run cold. The letter was on that heavy yellowed stationery my dad always kept in the desk, the kind with faint fibers you could feel if you ran your fingers across it. His handwriting was careful and slanted, the way it used to look on permission slips and lunchbox notes. I stood at my kitchen counter with the envelope torn open and the paper shaking in my hands, like I was holding something alive. The house was completely silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car rolling past outside. I read the first line 3 times before my brain allowed it to land. "Anna, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to say what I needed to your face. I am sorry for that. I asked Mr. Harris to give you this only after everything was settled because I didn't want this letter to become a bargaining chip or a weapon anyone could use against you." I swallowed. My mouth tasted like pennies. I kept reading. "You're going to be angry at me for leaving the mess I knew would follow. I know your heart, and I know you love to fix broken things. But this is one you don't fix by giving pieces of yourself away. I left everything to you for 3 reasons. First, this house. It was your mother's before it was mine. Your mother bought it with money she inherited from her aunt before she and I were married. When she passed, I refinanced to keep it. I have paid on it ever since, but your mother's name is in the bones. It belongs with you. Second, you were the one here. When my left knee gave out and the doctor told me to take it easy. You were the one who brought the groceries and argued with me when I pretended I didn't need help. When I didn't want to call the plumber, you did. When I pretended I hadn't forgotten my pills, you counted them. Third, I did not leave your siblings with nothing. I had to sit down. I slid onto the chair by the counter, and the wood creaked under me. The letters swam a little. I blinked until they stopped. When I divorced their mother, we made an agreement, formal, signed, and filed. She asked for things I agreed to because I had failed her in ways I won't pretend didn't happen. She took the lake cabin and the Tahoe with the boat I loved more than I should have. I paid child support, and more than child support. I paid for their braces, their summer camps, the school trips, the emergencies that came without warning. In 2001, I funded 2 custodial accounts for Jake and Emily. I also set up a life insurance policy that would pay to them directly. I have the numbers and statements to prove all this, because I knew, one day, someone might say I did not. Mr. Harris has a binder. If they contest, he will show. Not to shame them, but to tell the truth. They will say I abandoned them. I did not. I did leave their mother, which is a different pain, and one they have every right to feel. I tried to see them. I tried to send letters. Most were returned. I stopped trying when Jake told me. He was 12, Anna, such a small 12, that his mother cried for days after each message, and he asked if I could stop because he felt like he was the one harming her when he handed her my envelopes. I did what he asked. I can't say that was right, only that it felt like the least wrong choice I had. You will want to share. That is your nature. I am asking you not to. It will not heal what is broken. It will only move the line where they stand and say, more. I exhaled and realized I'd been holding my breath. There is one more thing. There is an envelope in the bank box with my name on it, key in the top right drawer of my desk under the old receipts. If, only if, they force you into court or into a corner, give that envelope to Mr. Harris. He will know what to do. I am proud of you. Even on the days when you slam doors and we go quiet for hours, I am proud of you. Keep the house. Keep your peace. Love, Dad. I set the paper down, and the world seemed too bright. I stared at the curl of his signature until my eyes stung and my chest started that tight ache. The one that means a cry is coming whether you want it or not. I pressed my palms into the counter, steadying myself, and breathed slow until the ache softened. He had reasons. Reasons that weren't just, you're my favorite, or too bad. He had a binder, bank accounts, a policy, and a bank box with an envelope only for if they force you. They were going to force me. I pulled my phone toward me and typed a message to Mr. Harris, then deleted it, then typed again and finally hit call. He picked up on the second ring, voice still measured like always, like he had swallowed a watch, and everything he said ticked out at one careful rhythm. Anna, I found a letter, I said. From my dad. He said you have a binder. A small pause. I do. And a bank box. An envelope. Only if they force me. Another pause, longer, full of the words he wasn't going to say. Yes, he said finally. There is such an envelope. My fingers tightened around the phone. What's in it? I can't tell you that over the phone, he said gently. Not because I am being dramatic, because I promised your father I would not open it unless a specific trigger happened. We aren't there yet. And if we never get there, that is best for everyone. What if we already are there? I asked. Emily gave me an ultimatum. A week to decide before they contest. That is bluster, he said. Or, not only bluster. They can contest. It's their right. But a contest is not a conviction. And before we escalate, I would prefer to show them the binder. Most people do not want to spend the money on a lawsuit once they see facts they did not expect. What if they see it, and still? I trailed off, because the rest didn't have words in my mouth yet. What if they see it, and keep coming? What if they see it, and set the binder on fire, and come for me anyway? Then we go step by step, he said. Would you like to come by this afternoon? I can show you what I have, so there are no surprises for you. I said yes before my nerves could talk me out of it. When I hung up, I realized my hands were ice cold. I rubbed them together and looked at the letter again, at the line about me, giving pieces of myself away. That line felt like it had my name engraved. I'm the kind of person who gives you the nicer half of the sandwich and pretends I wasn't hungry. The kind who says, it's fine, when it isn't. Maybe that's why the guilt had been eating me raw since the will, because some deep part of me believed the only way to stop this fight was to sacrifice a limb and call it compromise. The phone buzzed against the counter. Emily, clock's ticking. We can do this the easy way or the expensive way. Another ping. Emily, equal thirds. House can be sold. We're not unreasonable. My stomach flipped so hard I had to close my eyes. We're not unreasonable. The sentence sat there like a dare. I typed and deleted. Typed and deleted. Then I put the phone face down and stood, because if I let myself reply right then, I was going to say something I couldn't take back. I needed a person who wasn't a lawyer and wasn't them. I needed someone who knew the version of me that wasn't just a reflection of their anger. I texted Mia, "Are you free? Coffee emergency." The real kind. She called me instead of texting back, which is who she is. Say no more. Where are you? I'll come to you. She showed up 20 minutes later with 2 pastries and the particular kind of stare that says, "Try me. I dare you to pretend you're okay." Mia and I met sophomore year of high school when she lent me a sweatshirt after I spilled orange soda on myself, and she said, "I have too. You look like a raccoon trying to cosplay a traffic cone." We've been in each other's corners since. I put the letter on the table between us. She read it all the way through, let out a long breath, and then read the first page again. She tapped a fingernail on the sentence about the custodial accounts and the policy. So he didn't just leave them. I guess not, I said. My voice sounded small even to me. This doesn't fix feelings, she said, but it changes the math. She looked at me. He set this up like someone who knew there would be feelings. I keep thinking I'm awful. I blurted, surprising even myself with how fast it came out. Like, if I were a better person, I'd cut a check and tell them to take the house too. But then I hear his voice, and he asked me not to. And then I feel like a traitor to him. And then I feel like a traitor to myself. And then I feel like I'm going to throw up. Mia leaned back. You took care of him, she said. You do not owe them your throat. You don't have to choose to be the villain in your own mind to make them feel okay. Also, maybe this is the part where I remind you that your mom put the down payment on this house, and her memory is not a bargaining chip either. Because if you won't fight for you, you will fight for her. That's just how you're wired. I pressed my lips together and fought against the new rush of tears. I also don't want to fight anyone. I know, she said, softening. I know, but they're fighting you. You can choose the terms. I told her about Mr. Harris and the binder and the bank box. She made a face at the phrase, "only if they force you," which matched the face inside my own head. Sounds like a bomb you hope you don't have to detonate, she said. Exactly. She toed off her shoes and tucked one leg under her like she always does when she's settling in. Let's go see the binder. Then you have information, not just feelings. And then if you want to make a choice later that is generous, that will be because it is your choice, not because you were bullied into it. I hugged her before we left because otherwise I was going to come apart in the parking lot. Mr. Harris's office felt different now that the reading of the will wasn't hanging over it like a thundercloud. The receptionist gave me a small sympathetic smile that made me feel, for the first time since all this started, like maybe not everyone assumed I was the villain based on headline alone. He brought us into a small conference room and set a navy blue 3-ring binder on the table with the care a librarian uses when placing an antique onto a velvet pad. I'll let you take photos of anything you need, he said, but please don't take the originals. Some of these documents are like lint magnets for trouble when they leave an office. Inside the binder were copies of the divorce agreement, pages and pages with names and dates, typed clauses, signatures at the bottom that belonged to a time when my father's hair was still dark and my half-siblings didn't know how their lives would split like a river around a rock. There were scanned checks, child support, extra payments, receipts from orthodontists, and camp registrations. Statements from 2 UTMA accounts dated years ago, an insurance policy naming Jake and Emily beneficiaries. I traced my finger along a line item, monthly premium paid, and another, beneficiaries. Jake, last name, Emily, last name. I didn't understand all the legal language, but I understood enough to see that Dad had thought about them. Do they know about these? I asked, not looking up. I can't say what they know, Mr. Harris said. I can only say that the accounts were disclosed at the time of the divorce, and the policy documents list contact addresses. Whether those addresses were updated as they grew, I don't know. Something in my chest loosened and tightened at once. What if, I said slowly, they never saw any of this? What if their mother didn't show them or lost it or didn't want to? He folded his hands. That is not a thing I can speculate on in any way that helps you, he said gently. What helps you is to know that you aren't a villain fabricated out of spite. Your father made provisions. If they choose to ignore that, that is their choice. If they truly didn't know, then perhaps seeing this will cool the temperature. I took photos of everything, page by page, until my camera roll looked like a textbook. The more I looked, the more grounded I felt. Not triumphant. Nothing about this felt like triumph, but steadier. There were facts, and they weren't on Emily's phone screen or Jake's glare. They were ink. When we were done, Mr. Harris closed the binder and slid a hand over the cover as if smoothing a wrinkle. I will reach out to their counsel, he said. I have their mother's attorney from the original file. Often families return to someone familiar. If they don't have counsel yet, I will send a letter to them directly inviting a review with me present. I nodded. And the bank box? It exists, he said. I am still bound by your father's instruction regarding the sealed envelope. If we open that thing, there will not be a way to unopen what is inside. The words sat heavy. I looked at Mia, then at him. Can I at least go to the bank and, I don't know, look at the outside of the envelope? I tried to smile to make it a joke, but it came out thin. Mr. Harris allowed a small smile in return. You can retrieve the key from your father's desk. The box is registered to his estate, which you represent. If you want me there when you go, I will come. If you want me to leave it, I will leave it. Come, I said before he finished. Please. We drove to the bank in that strange quiet of Thursday afternoons, where everything normal is happening. Dog walkers, a florist putting buckets of daisies on the sidewalk, while your own life is humming a different kind of noise under your skin. The safe deposit room was colder than the lobby, and my mind supplied a picture from a movie of jewels and state secrets tucked into metal drawers. The attendant checked our ID, handed us a small brass key that felt heavier than it should, and led us to a narrow table, then tactfully stepped away. Mr. Harris set the long, thin box on the table and lifted the lid like he was opening a casket. I stood just to his right, heart up in my throat. Inside were a few things I recognized: the title to the car, a small velvet pouch I knew held my mother's locket, a stack of certificates from the bank itself. Underneath that, a manila envelope with my father's handwriting. Only if they force you. The letters of the sentence were careful, as if he had pressed down hard enough to make them unmissable. My eyes found the seam of the flap. It was sealed with a strip of clear tape. The tape had a faint cloudiness to it, like it had been pressed, and then unpressed, and then pressed again once, years ago, and then never touched. What happens, I asked, if we open it? Then we step into a different conversation, Mr. Harris said. One that cannot be unstepped. What if I just look? I asked, half to myself. What if I just need to know if the thing I'm scared of is really the thing? Mia touched my elbow. You don't owe fear the respect of letting it lead, she murmured. But also I know you. If you go home without opening that, you will stare into your ceiling all night and imagine worse things than paper can hold. I almost laughed. Is that your way of saying open it or don't? But choose, don't wobble? That is my way of saying I brought you here, and I will stand here and hold your hand no matter which you pick. The room seemed to tilt, only slightly, like the moment when an elevator starts to move. I lifted the envelope. It felt ordinary. That made it worse. I slid my thumbnail under the edge of the tape. My hand shook so badly, I had to set the corner against the table to steady it. The tape gave with a soft, unpleasant sound. I glanced at Mr. Harris. He didn't nod or shake his head. He simply met my eyes for a moment and then looked at his hands, like he wanted me to know that whatever I did it not because he told me to, but because I chose it. I opened the flap and slid out the contents. There were 3 items. The first was a letter, shorter than the one on my kitchen table. The second was a photocopy of something that looked like a lab report. The third was a photograph, older, with the kind of faded edges that make you wonder how many wallets it's lived in. My vision tunneled. I put the photograph aside without looking and picked up the lab sheet because it felt like it would be easier. Numbers are easier than hearts. The bold heading at the top said paternity test results. No, I looked for names. There they were. My father's. Emily's. The line beneath had a sentence I didn't fully understand, a statement about exclusion, written in a clinical tone that felt cruel even though it was just facts. I kept searching the page as if, somewhere, there would be a footnote that said just kidding. There was not. My knees went soft. I sat before my body chose for me, and I ended up on the floor. Anna. Mia's voice came from far away, gentle but urgent. Hey, hey, what is it? I turned the sheet so they could see. Mr. Harris's mouth pressed into a thin line I hadn't seen on him before. The letter in my father's handwriting felt heavier now. I set the lab report down and picked up the note with hands that didn't feel like mine. Anna, if we are here, it means what I hoped would never be needed is needed. When Emily was a toddler, your mother found a letter in a drawer. I will not put the details here because the details don't matter now the way they mattered then. We did a test not because I wanted to ruin a child's life, but because their mother told me she had something to tell me and then could not bring herself to say the words when the day came. I didn't want to know, but the not knowing became a weight on my chest I couldn't lift. The result is in your hands. I hid this because a piece of paper does not change the shape of a heart. I raised Emily as mine in my heart for the years I had with her. She is mine in the places that matter and not in the places that a judge writes down. If you can avoid it, do not use this. If you must, use it only to stop harm from spilling more harm. If she knows, I am the one who should have said it, not a man in a tie in a courtroom. But I cannot say it anymore. I am sorry. I am sorry for the ways this hurts everyone. I wish I had never taken the test. I am telling you this because I could not leave you without every tool I have, even the ones I hate that I had to make. I read it 3 times, and the third time the words blurred into black strings, and then into shapes that stopped being words at all. He didn't want this to be a weapon. I said, not sure if I was speaking to Mia, or Mr. Harris, or the envelope, or the wall. He says not to use it unless. I couldn't finish the sentence. Mia sat beside me on the narrow bench, so close our shoulders touched. She didn't say anything. I was grateful for the quiet. Do they know? I asked finally, voice scratchy. Does she know? Mr. Harris rubbed his thumb along the edge of the table as if smoothing a splinter. I do not know, he said. I have never spoken to Emily about it. I have never spoken to their mother about it. I have known only that your father placed this with me and asked that it not see daylight unless there was no other way to stop a harm. I put the lab report back into the envelope like it might spill. My hands were shaking again. Okay, I whispered. Okay, we put it back. We pretend we didn't see it. We let the binder do the talking. We do not blow up someone's life because we are angry. Mia squeezed my hand. That's your heart talking, she said. And it's a good heart. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my fingers moved anyway. Another message from Emily. Emily, for days left. We're serious. I stared at the screen until the letters lost their shape. Then I stood and slid the envelope back into the box, even though every cell in my body felt like it wanted to clutch it and never let it out of my sight. On the drive home, the world looked like it always looked. Same hardware store, same mural of the heron on the side of the laundromat, same pair of teenagers hunched over a shared milkshake like a small miracle. And I wanted to shout out the window. Everything is different, don't you see? But that is not how the world works. The world keeps moving even when you are holding a secret like a live wire. When we pulled into my driveway, there was a man sitting on my front steps. Jake. He stood when he saw the car, and I could tell from the set of his shoulders that he had been sitting there long enough for his anger to cool into something more focused. He wasn't vibrating like last time. He looked almost tired. Mia touched my arm. Do you want me to stay? Yes, I said, because bravery isn't the same as foolishness. We got out together. Jake's eyes flicked to Mia, then to the way we stood a half step from each other like we're used to forming a unit. He exhaled through his nose. Can we talk? He said. I'm not here to yell. I glanced at Mia. She lifted an eyebrow that said, your house, your call. Okay, I said, unlocking the door. Inside. I made tea because that's what you do when your brain needs a task that doesn't require any moral calculus. We sat at the table where the letter had sat that morning. The room felt crowded with ghosts. Jake wrapped his hands around the mug, even though he didn't drink. Emily is going to push this, he said finally. Hard. I don't know if I want to do that. I stared. What? He shrugged once, sharp, like it hurt. We talked to a guy? He said contesting will cost money we do not have. He said we might drag this out and get nothing and make everyone miserable. He pushed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, thinking. I also found some old papers in a box at my mom's. Statements. From accounts I didn't know about. I called the bank. They said the accounts were closed out years ago when we turned 18. My heart thudded. So you saw? He nodded. Look, I still think he was wrong. I still think a dad shouldn't make one kid feel like the beginning of a new life and the others like ghosts haunting his old one. But I don't know. Maybe it isn't as simple as we wanted it to be. From the corner of my eye, I could see Mia studying his face, not to catch him in a lie, but to understand what gear he was using to move. What does Emily say? I asked. He huffed a small, humorless laugh. That I'm being soft. That he brainwashed me even dead. That if I won't fight, she will. He looked at me straight. She means it. A silence fell between us, heavy but not hostile. The secret about the envelope buzzed in my body like static. I wanted to say, you don't have to do this. You don't have to burn her life to stop a fire. I wanted to say, I know something that makes this all more complicated in a way that might crush her completely. I said none of it. What do you want? I asked, because that seemed like the only sentence I owned. He stared into his tea. His jaw worked. I want to stop waking up angry, he said. I want to stop thinking of you as a person who stole something from me. He broke off, swallowed. I want to hear him say he was sorry. For not trying harder. For letting us become a story other people tell. My throat burned. Me too, I said softly. We sat with that for a moment, the odd ache of agreement. Jake scrubbed his face with his hands. Emily wants to meet you here tomorrow, he said. She says she has something to show you. If I were petty, I'd say don't be alone. But you're smarter than me, and you already figured that out. He glanced at Mia, and his mouth twitched like maybe once upon a time he knew how to smile. What does she want to show me? I asked. He stood, pushing back his chair. No idea. But she said, and I quote, once she sees it, she'll have no choice. The words knocked at that new door in my mind where the envelope lived. No choice. After he left, Mia and I stood in the doorway and watched him go. The light was going soft outside, the way it goes soft in late afternoon when everything looks more beautiful than it has any right to. Tomorrow, Mia said. Whatever she brings, you don't go into that conversation without your own documents. I won't, I said. I put a hand on the back of the nearest chair to steady myself. I think she found something too. Mia turned her head. Like what? I stared at my phone, at Emily's last message hovering like a storm cloud. I don't know, but my father left me a letter that asked me not to use a truth unless I had to. And Emily just told me she has a truth she plans to detonate on my kitchen table. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake and watched the headlights from passing cars crawl across my ceiling and thought of binders and envelopes and promises made by people who were trying their best and still landed us all here, in this mess. At 9 the next morning, Emily texted, be there at 10. Don't stall. At 9:30, I placed the binder on the table and set a glass of water next to it. At 9:45, Mia arrived with that set to her shoulders that says, I am exactly as calm as I need to be to do what needs doing. At 9:50, I ran my thumb over the edge of the bank envelope like it might whisper a different ending if I touched it just right. At 10 sharp, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw not only Emily but also their mother on my step. Her lips pressed tight, her hair pulled back in a severe twist that made her look like she could cut paper with her outline. I opened the door, and Emily raised her chin, eyes bright not with tears, but with a kind of hard glitter. Good, she said. You're ready. She stepped inside, their mother close behind, and Emily set a folder on my table with a slap that made me jump. Let's stop pretending, she said, and her smile did not reach her eyes. You want the truth? Here it is. I looked at the folder and felt my stomach drop like I'd missed a step in the dark. Because on the tab, in black marker, was written a single word I wasn't ready to hear out loud. Paternity. I stared at the folder like it might leap off the table. The word paternity sat there in bold black ink, sharp and cruel, like it had been written just to cut me open. Emily crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, her smile tight and victorious. Go on. Open it. Her mother, Marlene, stood stiff beside her, chin high, eyes burning into me. It was the first time I'd seen her in years, maybe ever up close. She didn't even glance at me like I was human. She looked at me like I was the mistake her life had been forced to live with. Mia shifted in her seat, her posture tense, as if she was ready to grab the folder out of Emily's hands if things went south. I swallowed. What is this supposed to be? Emily tilted her head, mocking. What do you think? Proof. Proof that you're not even supposed to have what you have. Proof that Dad wasn't exactly honest about you. My blood went cold. For a second, I thought my ears had betrayed me. Me? I'd expected her to use the word against herself, against Jake, against her mother's marriage. But no, she was aiming straight at me. What are you talking about? My voice cracked, which only made Emily's smirk widen. Dad wasn't your dad, she said slowly, savoring each word. You're not his real daughter, which means this entire inheritance doesn't belong to you. The air sucked out of the room. Mia slammed her hand on the table. That's not only disgusting, it's nonsense. Anna is his daughter. Everyone knows that. Everyone thinks they know that. Marlene snapped, finally speaking, her voice sharp as glass. But the truth has a way of finding daylight. Emily pushed the folder closer to me. Read it. DNA doesn't lie. My hands shook as I reached for it, even though part of me screamed not to touch it, not to give them the satisfaction. I flipped it open. Inside were photocopies, pages with official-looking letterheads, case numbers, charts, a lab's watermark faint across the middle. And there it was, bold and cold. Probability of paternity, 0%. I froze. The name on top wasn't mine. It was my father's. The other name, the alleged child, was me. No, my voice was barely a whisper. Emily leaned in, her eyes gleaming. See? You're not even blood. You're nothing but some man's mistake. He left everything to you because he was covering up the lie. He owed us, and instead of paying us, he gave it all to the kid that wasn't even his. Mia grabbed the papers out of my hands. Where did you even get this? She demanded. Because I'll tell you right now, it looks doctored. Marlene's lips curled. I've had it for years. Sat on it, waiting. Figured one day it would matter. The words made bile rise in my throat. She'd waited, held on to this bomb like it was some twisted gift, saving it from maximum destruction. Why now? I asked, my voice shaking. Because you're standing in a house that was supposed to be theirs, Emily spat. Because you're sitting on money that should have been ours. Because you're pretending to be the rightful daughter when you're just a fraud. Well, the truth is out now. You don't get to hide behind him anymore. My pulse roared in my ears. I thought of my father's letter, the envelope in the bank, the lab report tucked inside. Only it wasn't about me. It was about Emily. The irony slammed into me so hard I almost laughed. They were sitting here, brandishing forged or twisted proof against me, while the real proof that could undo them was locked away. But I couldn't use it. Not yet. Not unless I wanted to blow their lives to pieces. Mia leaned closer to me, her voice low but steady. Anna, don't let them bait you. This could be fake. It probably is fake. And even if it wasn't, your dad chose you. He made that choice. Emily rolled her eyes. Oh, please. He made that choice because he was lying to everyone. You think courts will care about what he chose? No. They'll care about facts. And we've got them. I met her gaze. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. She didn't just want money. She wanted me ruined. She wanted to rip my very identity apart and leave me with nothing. And deep down, part of me wondered, was this all just hate for me? Or was it hate for Dad that she couldn't unload anywhere else? My hands curled into fists in my lap. If you think you can scare me into giving you everything, you're wrong. Emily's smile sharpened. We don't need to scare you. We just need a judge. She stood, her mother following, the folder still sitting on the table like a poison. 3 days, Emily said. 3 days before we file. Your move. They walked out, leaving the door wide open behind them, and I sat there trembling, staring at the forged report until my vision blurred. Mia's hand landed on mine, grounding me. Anna, you have to tell me. The envelope. You opened it, didn't you? My breath hitched. I nodded slow. And I swallowed hard, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. It's not me. It's Emily. Mia's eyes widened. And then my phone buzzed again. A new message. From Jake. We need to talk. Privately. I know about the folder. And I know something else too. I stared at Jake's text for a full minute before I could breathe. We need to talk. Privately. I know about the folder. And I know something else too. My thumb hovered over the screen. Every part of me screamed not to walk into another trap, not to give either of them more chances to break me down. But there was something in his words, something else, that gnawed at me. What did he know? I typed when. The response came quick. Tonight. 8. Same diner we went to after the lawyer's office. I hadn't even realized he'd noticed I went there that day, trying to bury myself in a milkshake while replaying the will in my head. The fact he remembered made my stomach twist. Mia leaned over, reading the screen. You're not going alone. I shook my head. He said privately. Privately doesn't mean unsafely, she shot back. I'll sit at another table. You don't even have to look at me. But I'm not letting you walk into whatever this is without a lifeline. And as much as my pride wanted to argue, the knot in my chest loosened at her words. Okay, I whispered. The diner was half empty when we got there. The kind of place that smelled like coffee no matter what you ordered, where the booths had that faint stickiness from decades of syrup spills. Jake was already there, sitting in a corner booth with a cup of black coffee in front of him. His posture was tense, his knee bouncing under the table. When I slid into the booth, he glanced past me and caught sight of Mia, settling into a table near the door, pretending to scroll her phone. His lips pressed tight, but he didn't say anything. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Just the hum of the neon sign outside buzzing faintly through the glass. Finally, Jake leaned forward. Emily's folder. Don't let her scare you with it. My throat tightened. You've seen it. She waved it at me last night, he muttered, rubbing a hand over his face. Told me we'd finally have leverage. Only problem is, I know it's fake. I blinked. You do? He nodded. I recognized the lab. The letterhead. That's not where Dad ever had anything done. When I broke my hand in high school, he took me to a different clinic in town. He didn't trust the other one after they botched a test with my mom years ago. He exhaled. It's a forgery. She either made it herself or had someone help her. A mix of relief and dread surged in me. Why would she? Because Emily doesn't want the truth, he cut me off. She wants a weapon. She's furious Dad didn't give her what she thought she was owed, so she'll burn the ground until something caves. I studied him. His face was tired, drawn, but his eyes didn't carry the same fire Emily's did. He looked worn out more than anything. And the something else you mentioned? I asked carefully. Jake leaned back, crossing his arms. His gaze flicked to the window, like he wanted to make sure no one was listening. I found a box in Mom's attic. Old letters. From Dad. My chest tightened. Letters. Dozens, he said. Birthday cards. Notes. Even a couple of checks he mailed directly to us. All returned, unopened. She'd kept them. Hid them from us. Said he never tried, that he abandoned us. His jaw clenched. Turns out, he tried harder than I thought. She just made sure we never saw it. The words hit me like a punch. So much made sense suddenly. The venom in Emily's voice, the certainty in her eyes. She'd been fed a version of the past where Dad was a ghost. Where he chose me, chose Mom, and chose to erase them. No wonder she hated me. Jake rubbed his temples. I don't know if she knows the truth now and just doesn't care, or if she's lied so long she believes it herself. But Emily's rage? It's built on years of that poison, and she won't stop unless someone cuts her off. I sat in silence, my heart pounding, because I did have something that could cut her off. The envelope. The paternity test. The truth she didn't know. But if I used it, I'd shatter her life. Jake's eyes met mine. Look, I don't want a war. I don't. But if she files, it's going to drag everything into the open. And once it's in court, you don't get to control the narrative anymore. So what do? I whispered. He hesitated. Then, softer, almost guilty. You fight dirty before she does. I froze. He leaned in, lowering his voice. You think I don't know? Dad told Harris years ago. About Emily. I figured it out when I was old enough. She doesn't know, but I do. And I'll tell you this. If she pushes this into court, that secret won't stay secret. Not if it's the only way to stop her. My stomach turned. Jake. He held up a hand. I'm not saying I want it. I'm saying it's coming whether we like it or not. So you need to decide. Are you going to use it to protect yourself, or let her destroy you with lies first? I sat back, dizzy. The hum of the neon, the clink of dishes in the kitchen, the faint scrape of Mia's chair as she shifted, it all blurred into background noise. Because for the first time, I wasn't just holding the secret alone. Someone else knew, and he was telling me to weaponize it. But could I? Could I be the one to drop a truth like that? My phone buzzed on the table. Emily again. Tick-tock, little sister. 2 days left. I didn't even open it. I just stared at the screen until my reflection warped in the glass. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. It wasn't just about what Dad left me anymore. It was about how far I was willing to go to keep it. By noon the next day, Mr. Harris had already called twice. The second time, his voice held that calm I recognized from people who deliver bad news for a living. Emily's counsel just served notice of intent to contest, he said. They're seeking a temporary restraining order to freeze the estate assets. My stomach dropped. What does that actually mean? It means she wants the court to keep you from selling, moving, or spending anything until the dispute is resolved, he said. It's standard. It also means we have a first hearing tomorrow morning at 9. Tomorrow. I gripped the counter edge to steady myself. Do we bring the envelope? Not unless we must, he said gently. Our first move is facts. The divorce agreement, the custodial accounts, the insurance policy, and a declaration from your brother if he'll give one. I hesitated. Jake found letters. Unopened ones. From Dad. There was the smallest pause. If he will authenticate them, that helps a great deal. I texted Jake. Can you bring the letters to Harris's office? Today? He answered, on my way. Before we left, Mia straightened the papers into neat stacks like we were arming ourselves with rectangles. Deep breath, she said. You're not walking in there empty-handed anymore. Harris's conference room looked the same, but I didn't. I felt older somehow. Like a week of grief had been replaced with a year of firefight. Jake arrived with a banker's box. He didn't look at me when he set it down, but his jaw was set with a purpose I hadn't seen in him before. Together we sorted. Envelopes with my dad's handwriting, returned to sender stamps, birthday cards never opened, a photo of 3 kids at a pumpkin patch paperclipped to a note that said, "Wish I were there." Harris wore thin cotton gloves to handle the oldest letters. Chain of custody, he murmured. We'll keep them here, and I'll scan everything this afternoon. Once the box was labeled and placed on a credenza, Harris folded his hands. I've invited Emily and her counsel to a courtesy review, he said. Not formal discovery, an opportunity. If they're reasonable, they will reassess. I almost laughed at the word reasonable, but I nodded. They came at 3. Emily in a blazer that could cut, her mother in a dress the color of wet slate, and a man in a crisp suit who introduced himself as Mr. Lowell. His smile stopped at his teeth. We sat. Harris began with the binder, the divorce agreement, the custodial accounts, copies of checks. He laid each piece like cards in a careful game. Lowell's mouth turned a quarter inch. Interesting, he said, but irrelevant to the decedent's final will and the question of undue influence. Emily slid a folder across the table with the same drama as yesterday. Only this time, Harris didn't even touch it. We will address that, he said calmly, after we address this. He pivoted to the letters Jake brought. These are unopened correspondences to the children, retained by their mother, he said, voice gentle but exact. Dated, stamped. They suggest an effort to maintain contact that was not received. Marlene's lips whitened. He sent nonsense, she snapped. He wanted to look good on paper. Paper is what courts read. Harris replied, not unkindly. Emily's eyes flicked to Jake. You went through Mom's things. They were ours, he said, voice low. You were sleeping. Harris opened a manila envelope and laid out the policy page. And this is a life insurance policy naming Jake and Emily as beneficiaries. Paid and in force as of the date of death. Lowell leaned forward finally, studying the line of print. How much? Enough that an equal third share of the estate would not necessarily exceed it, Harris said. He left the number unsaid. The implication hung there. Emily's posture didn't soften. Her eyes were locked on me, not the papers. None of that changes the truth, she said, and snapped the tab on her folder. Anna isn't his, which means she had every incentive to manipulate him. Harris slid a single page toward her. Before we get there, he said smoothly, I would like to know the chain of custody for your supposed lab report. We called the facility listed. They have no record of this accession number. The template used here is an outdated version they retired 5 years ago. Lowell's expression changed. Only a sliver, but I saw it. He angled the page toward himself. Emily, he murmured. She didn't flinch. My mother's friend worked there a long time ago, she said. She made a copy before the files were deleted. Same thing. Marlene's gaze cut sideways. Emily. Enough. Emily snapped, and then looked right at me. We all know what he did. He replaced us. Don't hide behind technicalities. Harris's voice stayed level, but the temperature in it dropped. Submitting falsified medical records to a court is not a technicality, Ms. Last name. I suggest you and Mr. Lowell discuss the strategic wisdom of relying on that document again. Lowell touched Emily's arm, a small signal. Let's take a moment, he said. He shepherded them to the hallway. The door closed behind them in a hush. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My hands were buzzing. Jake sat very still, forearms on his thighs. After a moment he said, so softly I almost didn't hear it, "She doesn't know how to stop." "Grief doesn't either," Mia said, equally soft. They returned 3 minutes later, faces arranged back into professional lines. Lowell cleared his throat. "We're prepared to withdraw the temporary restraining request pending the hearing tomorrow," he said. "We'll proceed on undue influence only." I stared. "So you're not?" Emily's eyes were flat. "I'm not done," she said. "I'm just changing tactics." She stood. "See you in court." When the door shut, I felt sick. "She's still going to file something," I said. "Yes," Harris said. "But I'm slightly more optimistic a judge will see the shape of this quickly. Rest tonight if you can." I did not rest. At 7, I took a bath and scrolled, which was a mistake. A vague post appeared on a local community group about a daughter who wasn't a daughter stealing a house that wasn't hers. No names, but the comments were a bonfire waiting for a match. I threw my phone face down on the rug and stared at the ceiling until my skin pricked from the cooling water. At 9, the doorbell rang. I froze. Mia looked at me, eyebrows up. I checked the peephole. A man stood there with a messenger bag and a neutral face. "Ms. Anna, last name?" he called. "Service of process." My throat went dry. I opened the door 2 inches. He slid a thick envelope through the gap. "Emergency motion filed," he said, polite as a weather report. Hearing time changed to 8 a.m. After he left, I set the packet on the table and flipped through. My eyes skipped over the legal sentences until they hit one line that made the room tilt. Petitioner seeks immediate access to decedent's personal effects, including safe deposit holdings, to secure potential evidence of undue influence and fraud. My blood went cold. They were coming for the bank box, and the envelope inside it. I barely slept, terrified the court would pry open the safe deposit box. At the hearing, Emily's lawyer pushed hard. Potential evidence of undue influence. Harris stayed calm. They're after leverage, not truth. The judge's eyes cut like glass. Motion denied. No access without cause. Relief hit me, but only for a moment. Outside, Emily brushed past, hissing, "Enjoy it." "I'm not finished." Marlene lingered behind, her voice cold. "He could have spared us all with honesty. Secrets always bleed." That evening, my phone buzzed with a new court filing. My blood froze when I opened it. It was the real paternity report. The PDF stared back at me. Emily wasn't my father's by blood. I called Harris in a panic. "It wasn't me." "I know," he said. "Filed from a public library. I'll move to seal." Next morning, the judge confirmed, "Irrelevant. Sealed. Any mention, and sanctions follow." Emily's face drained in court. In the hallway she spat. "You did this." "I didn't. I asked to protect you." I whispered. Her laugh was sharp. "I don't want your pity." But that night she texted, "Meet me. Park. Alone. By the lake." She hugged herself, voice cracking. "I know. Mom told me. I'm not his. I don't want your money. I just want to stop being the ghost outside his house." She turned, shadows swallowing her. "But watch out. Mom isn't finished." Then she was gone. The next day in court, Emily withdrew. She signed the papers with trembling hands, refusing to meet my eyes. Jake settled quietly, his relief almost visible. For a moment, it felt like the storm had finally broken. But Marlene rose, her voice sharp. "I'll file my own petition. I have truths he never told." The judge cut her off, stern. "Enough. This estate is settled. Let it rest." Marlene's face hardened, but she didn't speak again. She walked out without looking back. That evening, I sat alone in the house, my father's letter on the table. You don't fix this by giving pieces of yourself away. For the first time, I believed him. The house was mine, the past scarred but closed. Yet in the silence, I knew some wounds in this family would never heal, only fade into secrets we each carried alone.